My freshman year of high school was probably the most disturbing for me because it seemed like there was a bullying experience every single day. The band camp experience was very disturbing, but once school started, things just continued to happen. I remember in my first math course that I took, I hated math class and I had to take it because it was a requirement. Since it was like beginner math, like a lot of the upper class students who, waited to the last minute to take math were in that class taking it. And I think that's what was really scary for me, is because the upper class students who I didn't know were the ones who often picked on me the most. And a lot of it was subtle, but it stuck with me all the time. I remember there was this one time before class started, like someone was going over something and like asking a question about, one of the math problems, and it was a couple upperclassmen. One of them, I think, if I remember correctly, his name was Jordan, and another girl's name was Tiff or something like that. And I said something like, I was like helping, I mentioned the answer to the problem, I think it was. And she looked at me after hearing the sound of my voice and then looked at Jordan and was like, is he gay? Like, very condescendingly, like almost treating me like I wasn't even there. And then he laughed, like he was just like, and it was like the first or second day of school, I remember, and I felt like I didn't exist. And it was one of those instances where I went into that mode where I just wanted to cease existing. I wanted to be invisible because then nobody would notice me. Nobody would notice my, gayness. And from there on out, for the rest of that class, I was very quiet. I remember that the Jordan guy was always very mean to me. There were instances where I had to work in groups with him, and I just wanted to leave. Like I couldn't handle it. He would make fag comments and queer comments, and he would always invalidate everything that I said. So it just seemed like, one thing after another. One of the most difficult bouts of physical bullying that I had undergone was during the first few weeks of school my freshman year too. It was after school, and there was like practices going on and stuff like that, and I was in band, so I believe I was at like a band practice for the marching season, and I went to the bathroom, and I remember finishing up in the bathroom and moving out toward the sinks, and these guys were in there, and one of them, and I could tell they were huge upperclassmen. I think they were sports players. They seemed like they were sports players. And I had no idea who they were because I had never met them. And one of them was like, "What are you doing in here, queer?" I remember being shoved into the wall, and I slunk down by the sinks. And there were derogatory words like faggot and stuff thrown around. And I remember hollering, "Leave me alone," and I ran at them thinking that I could, squeeze through them and get out the door. And I bounced off from one of them like a toothpick and just fell. And I remember being backhanded and tasting that copper, blood taste in my mouth. And I was kind of dazed for several seconds, and I just remember them leaving. I heard like derogatory comments, and I cried, but I finished practice, and I went home and acted like nothing had happened. I didn't want to tell my parents that anything happened because I didn't want them to worry about me, and I didn't want them to know that I was gay at that time because I wasn't out. Eating lunch in the school cafeteria was another terrifying thing for me, especially my freshman year. I really didn't have too many friends, and there were some instances where I ate lunch alone or with just like one or two people. And there was this one day I had lunch. I was about to sit down, and someone threw food at me. Like, I think it was a pizza crust. Threw it at me. It landed in my food. It got all over the place, and I couldn't eat my food. It was disgusting after that. I mean, someone's eaten pizza crust was thrown at my food. And I was just startled, and I heard laughter and derogatory words against at a different table, a table again of upperclassmen. And I got upset and I left the cafeteria, went to the library because I had to get away from everybody. Band was a very important class and extracurricular activity for me. I play the saxophone, and I have for a very long time, and my freshman year of high school was very difficult because I was assimilating from middle school band to high school band. At first I was in like 6th or 7th chair out of the saxophones, and I built my way up, and I ended up being in 2nd chair after a while. Cassie, a very good friend of mine, one of the most dear people I have ever met, was in 1st chair, and the band instructor really liked her because he saw how talented she was. And unfortunately, I never really got a chance to show what I was capable of doing until later in high school, but at that point in time, I felt very inferior to her, and a lot of people would capitalize on that. There was a time where I think she was absent one day, and I played a solo. No, she wasn't. There was a day where she let me play a solo instead of her, because she would play the solos in any songs that featured a saxophone solo. And I played it, and I played it very well, and the band director wasn't paying attention, and he congratulated her instead of congratulating me, and I completely, again, I felt invisible, and I hated myself, because I felt like I didn't deserve any kind of recognition or any kind of kudos. A lot of people absolutely adored Cassie, and I can't blame them, because she was a really awesome person. And I remember we went to a solo and ensemble competition one year, and there was a lot of hype about, Cassie and I playing our solos and stuff like that, because her and I would usually go pretty far at the competition. And a person in band who came up to me before I was about to enter in and do my solo and said, Donny, you're good, but you'll never be as good as Cassie. You just never will be. And I felt like crying. I really felt like crying, and I remember going into my solo, I just was defeated. I was completely defeated, and I ended up doing very poorly on the solo too, because I was just like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? As much happiness band brought me, it also brought me an equal portion of sadness and frustration, because I didn't care about the competition. I wanted to play music, and I wanted to, receive positive feedback once in a while too, and a lot of people really didn't do that, and a lot of people tried discouraging me because they didn't like me, or they thought that I was, weird, or they made fun of me for being gay. I remember a lot of the upper class males in band class often insulted me and bullied me, and there were times, like after that whole solo and ensemble thing happened, I went a long time just trying not to go out of my way to do anything. I tried to just be quiet and to just, seem like I was a part of the background, because I didn't want to risk putting myself out there, because something like that would happen. A person would invalidate me or say something very mean to me that it would completely shatter me. And I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I would go home and cry over, just why am I in band, why am I doing music, because everyone nobody wants me to be there. Of course, band got much better as I got older. My junior and senior year, because I started playing more solos and people started being nicer to me. That was a very difficult time for me. A very difficult time. But I got through it. And I think that's what matters.